college. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so you've set some goals. You've now figured out all the specifics about those goals. You've figured out when I'm going to do it, what that translates into in terms of how much I need to save on a monthly basis to make sure I accomplish these goals. You've built a budget. And then the question is, well, what do I do with this money? Right? Where does it go? I've got money. Where does it go? Well, the first thing I want to mention is once you've determined how much you want to be saving, do you think it's a good idea to say, okay, well, the first of every month, I'm going to write a check to my savings account and deposit it? What do you think might be a better way of setting it up? That's true, absolutely. He said maybe the company can set it aside. Basically what you're getting at, which is exactly my point, is to do it automatically. Whether it's automatically coming out of your paycheck and going to a bank or an investment company, or you can set it up so that it comes out of your checking account automatically. And you need to set it up automatically because unfortunately if you don't, things get in the way. You forget, you don't have enough money, so you want to make sure that it happens automatically. Okay? So what's the problem with putting money under your mattress, in a jar, something like that for savings? Yes?
Well, it sits there and doesn't gain any more money.
That's exactly right. It doesn't earn anything. What's the biggest problem with that? What's the biggest problem with it not earning anything? Yes?
You can't earn it. You can put it in the bank.
Excuse me?
You can get interest just by putting it in the bank.
Yes, you can. You can get interest just by putting the money in the bank. But there are a lot of different options in a bank, so we'll talk about that. But what's the biggest problem with not, yes?
With inflation, it might lose value.
That's exactly right. It doesn't even keep pace with inflation, okay? So if you've got $500 under the mattress, and then at the end of the year you still have $500, but it cost you more than $500 to buy what could have bought $500 worth of goods at the beginning of the year is going to cost more than that at the end of the year. So you've actually lost money. You haven't even kept pace with inflation. Okay? So in order just to keep pace with inflation, you have to earn more than whatever inflation is running, right? So if you have a checking account that's earning 1% and inflation is running 3%, are you making any money? You're losing 2%. That's exactly right. You have to earn in excess of 3% just to keep pace with inflation. Okay? And people forget that. They want to be conservative with their money. I'm scared to lose it. I'm just going to put it really in a safe place. Is that safe, that you're losing money every year? Absolutely not. Okay? You want to make sure that you understand, what is inflation running? What do I need to earn to at least exceed? And what I want to talk about a bit is the difference between savings and investing. Does anyone know what the difference is between the two, or do you think they're the same thing? Yes?
I think savings, there's not much risk involved. You're going to get the same amount of interest no matter what.
Right.
You can lose money if you invest.
Exactly. What he said is savings is short-term. He didn't say short-term, but I'm telling you it's short-term. He said it's much less risky. You're really going to earn a fairly low rate of return. When you start to invest your money is when you're taking on more risk and when you've got the potential for higher rates of return. And it's for long-term purposes. Now, why do you think savings is for short-term purposes and investing is for long-term purposes? What do you think? What if you've decided you want to buy a house in a year and you need to accumulate $20,000 for a down payment? Yes?
Well, when you withdraw money, it's easier to withdraw money from your savings account.
It's easier to withdraw money from your savings account? Do you think it's relatively easy to withdraw money if you have money invested in stocks? But what's the problem? Yes?
Stocks are riskier over the short term, so they're risky over the short term.
Right.
You can't rely on them.
So stocks are riskier over the short term and you can't rely on them, is what she said. So what's the biggest problem because of that? You don't want to put your money into the stock market if you're going to need it in 6 months. Because if the stock market tanks, you don't have your money anymore. Okay? So let's talk about the time value of money. Have you talked about the time value of money in any of your business or finance classes? Does that sound familiar to anyone? What does it mean? I mean, I think you all understand the general concept of it. Okay? It basically is a relationship between time, money, rate of return, and the effect on the growth of money. So is it more valuable for you to have $1 today or $1 a year from now? Probably about 50-50. If I had $1 today, what can you do with that dollar? You can spend it. You can spend it, that's true, and then it's, right. But if we invest that dollar, okay, if we put into an account that earns some money, is that dollar worth more or less a year from now? More, right? So it's worth more to us today than it is a year from now. That's the whole concept of inflation also, right? Because it's going to cost more in the future to buy the same goods. Okay, so let's think about this. Have you heard of the term compounding of interest? Okay, do you know what it means? What is it? Go ahead.
25% one year, then it's, there's a new value, and then you're 25% on that value, so it keeps getting.
That's exactly right. Basically, it's when interest earns interest, that's compounding, okay? Which is what you said. You start out with $100, and if it earns 10% over the course of the year, how much do you have at the end of the year? 110, okay? If you leave the 110 and it earns 10%, how much is it at the end of the next year? 121. So what portion of that is compound interest? The extra dollar. Because if you had taken out the $10 that you earned the first year, you only would have earned $10, right? So the beauty of allowing your money to compound is that interest earns interest earns interest, and every year the pot of money is going to grow even bigger. Okay? So what I want you to look at, and I know I keep saying this, this is the most important thing, but this really is the most important thing you're going to look at this whole session. And if you can look at it, understand it, and then do it. Okay? If you look at page 29, there's an analysis, the advantage of starting early. So we've got two columns here, you and your sister, or your brother, or your friend. Now, you guys are all younger than 18, so you could start this even earlier than this says. But what this analysis shows you is if you start at age 18, put $2,000 a year away, and stop at age 27. Okay? So you've put $20,000 away. That's it. You don't put another dollar away, but you started very early in your life. At age 65, you've got 361 grand. Okay? Earning 7%. The next column, your sister says, I don't have money, I can't pay myself first, I've got to pay my bills, I'm not going to worry about it. She turns 31 and she thinks, uh-oh, I better start saving. I'm old now, I'm 31. And she starts putting $2,000 a year away. Okay? She, on the other hand, saves until she's 65. So she saves $70,000. She saves $50,000 more than you did and ends up with 276 grand, $85,000 less than what you were able to accumulate simply because you started early. And you saved $50,000 less. Do you realize how incredible that is? That just because of the way compounding works, if you start early enough, how much more you're going to accumulate. You don't even have to, ideally that doesn't stop at age 27, you save for your whole life, but the sooner you start, the more you're going to be able to accumulate. Okay? So how many of you are going to pay yourself first? Yes, some of you. Well, the question is, does pay yourself first work for everyone? And I would say most of the time, yes, but it does take some discipline. There are certainly going to be people who are living on welfare who have 6 kids who can't save money because they've got to put food in their kids' mouths. And there, unfortunately, are people like that in the world. But all of you are obviously intelligent, educated people. You're probably going to go on to college. You're all going to have a decent income after school. The only way it wouldn't work is if you're spending too much money, right? And when you get that first job and you start thinking about, well, where am I going to live? What car am I going to buy? What's the first thing you have to think about? Well, if I'm making $50,000, are you making $50,000? No. You're making a lot less than 50,000. So you need to understand what that translates